Hi, I'm Kenny Shanker, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to write your own music. Now, there are so many techniques for how to do this, and I'm going to make several videos and talk to you about some of my favorite ways for doing it myself. But we're going to start with one that's not necessarily the one I use the most often, but one of my very favorites. The first step in this process is you need to pay attention to and recognize the soundtrack in your head. So when I talk about the soundtrack in your head, this is what I'm referring to. When we're walking around, going about our day, riding the train, riding the bus, at the store, whatever it is, just going about our daily life, there's music floating around in our head at any given time. And sometimes it's something specific, like the theme song to a commercial you just watched, or some song you heard on the radio. But I'm not talking about those times. I'm talking about that non-specific, there's just some music floating around in there. And it just gets you through your day. Hey, I'm walking around, you got your little theme song for whatever it is. Now, some people might be thinking, well, I don't have any music going on in my head, but that's why the first step is to really pay attention for it. So I noticed for myself, just a little tip about this. When it's absolutely dead silent, when there's no other noise in a room, it's hard for me to really hear much of anything in my head, which sounds kind of strange, but when there's any kind of ambient noise, like a little bit of a drone especially, if there's a bathroom fan, a loud washing machine, a vacuum cleaner, when you're on a train or on a plane, there's this rumble that kind of goes in the background, this kind of sound. When that happens is the absolute best time for me to hear music in my head. It's like the music I'm hearing just goes right over the sound of whatever that droning pitch is, and it just perfectly, this perfect marriage. So definitely, if you're having trouble, try to really pay attention, especially in those times when there's some noise in the background. You might have an easier time. Okay, step 2. When you've noticed that soundtrack that's floating around in your head, you need some kind of recording equipment. Now, I'm not talking anything fancy here. The best thing you could probably use is your phone. If you have a smartphone, the reason I love the phone is because I have it with me all the time. And you don't know when you're going to be hearing music. It could happen when you're sleeping. It could happen, when you're, whatever it is. It just happens when it happens. So the phone is with you. If you don't have a phone that records, you can find little digital voice recorders. They're really cheap. And just make sure you bring it with you wherever you go, because if you don't have it with you, obviously it doesn't do you any good. So when you notice that music in your head, right away, I grab my phone, I hit record. First thing I tend to do is I'll sing the melody that I'm hearing. There's usually some kind of a melody. Now, if there's no melody, that's okay. You sing whatever it is that you do hear. If there's just a bass line, if there's just a little vamp kind of section going on, if it's just a drum beat, whatever it is you hear, do the best you can to get that into the recorder. Now, you don't have to be a professional opera singer. You don't have to be Frank Sinatra. You don't have to be Freddie Mercury. It doesn't matter. This is just for your ears only. So don't worry about the quality of the singing that goes into this, or if you're making drum sounds with your mouth or anything like that, don't worry about it. Just the best thing you can do is try to get as much detail as you can into this recording. So one of the things I always do to help me is I will give myself a count off. So if there's a melody going on, I'll give myself a 1, 2, 3, 4, ba-na-na-na-na, whatever it is, right? I always want to give myself so I know where 1 is when I'm listening later, because that can make a big difference, where it is on the beat. So give yourself a count off, try to figure out what that pulse is, what that tempo is, and count yourself in. A 1, 2, 3, ba-da-na, whatever it is. Give yourself that count off. The other thing I'll do is I'll try to listen for what the bass is doing. So, if I'm hearing a melody, I'll say, okay, what's happening in the bass? Now, not everybody's going to be able to hear this or notice this, but if you can, again, just do what you can. You can't do more than you can do, but try to really get the What is the bass doing? What are the instrumentation? What are you hearing? Are you hearing cellos? Are you hearing a harp? Are you hearing, whatever? This is a time to really get creative. Hear exactly what you're hearing in your mind. So when that's done, and usually my recordings, when I listen back to them, I'm hearing some combination of me talking, explaining what's going on, me counting, vocal percussion, singing. It's kind of a mess, but it's all there. And I understand it when I listen back later. I say, oh, okay, this is what was going on, and I can start to recreate it. So for those of you that might be thinking, I don't need to record it, I'm going to remember it. If it's worth remembering, I'll remember it. I'd say to you, you might want to reconsider. Because, in addition to the fact that I can't remember what I had for lunch today, it's very hard, especially just some random music that's going on in your head, for you to remember it several days later or even several minutes later. Our natural tendency is to throw out the things like that. One of the best times for me is I wake up out of a sound sleep, and all night in my dreams there's been some music floating around. And if I don't catch it right away, right when I wake up, then it's gone. Usually within 30 seconds it's gone. It's that fast, because your day comes in and you try to, what was that? And it's gone. So really try to get that recorded. The third step, when you have that recording, this is where it gets a little more complex. So if you have musical training and you play especially a chordal instrument like piano or guitar, that's great. You should be able to take your recording and go and start figuring out what the notes are. Figure out what the melody notes are. You can even write those out on some sheet music. Figure out what the chords might be, what chords sound good. And, if you've sang some bass notes for yourself, that helps too. You can figure that out. You write everything down that you can, and that may be it. If you're a little bit less experienced with songwriting, or you're just stuck, what I recommend highly is take it to a friend who is a musician, or take it to a teacher and have them help you take that song that you came up with and turn it into music. Write out sheet music, if you're trying to record it, help you make a recording of it. But, when I first started doing this with the songwriting, I would do this and I relied on people to help me. Sometimes I could do it myself, but I'd get stuck. And I'd say, oh man, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do with this. I have this idea, but I don't know how to write it. I don't know what the chords would be. Then I'd go to people that I knew, either other musicians or my teacher, and they would help me finish it. They would help me. I was really lucky in that way. I had some great teachers that, and then the more I did it, the more experience I had with it, the better I got at doing it myself. And of course, now I just do everything myself. But don't be afraid early on to get help from people. It's not cheating. It's your ideas, it's your music, but people can help you turn it into something. And so that's it. So a quick review. Pay attention to those songs that are floating around inside of your head and record them in as much detail as possible. Make sure to give yourself a count off, so you know where the tempo is and you know where one is. After all that's done, go to either an instrument and try to figure out yourself, what the notes are, what the chords are, and write it out. Or take it to a teacher or someone. And there's so many people. If you don't know someone, you can find someone. All over YouTube, there's a bunch of people give Skype lessons. And there's just musicians all over the place that will be willing to help you. So do follow through with this, and I really hope this technique works for you. It's been great for me, and I feel like of all the ways of writing music, again, even though I may not use this the most often, this is the most organic, and this is it gives the most of me in the music, because this is just truly that music that is just inside of me. I'm not trying to come up with it in some artificial way. It just is in there and I'm getting it out. So I tend to be really happy with the results when I compose this way. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can get more information at my website, kennyshanker.com. You can also subscribe here to see more videos, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks a lot.